All right, cool. Paul. Just had a couple of tweaks on 2 years, Paul. And they were all fairly minor. But yeah, I kind of felt like your brows were feeling like when you raised them, they just sort of went straight up. And then and I was kind of missing some of the worry overall in the rings, I think. Okay, so yeah, so this is your very first pose. And this is kind of just a slight adjustment that I had. So I wanted to kind of make sure that there was a lot of contrast between sort of where you start and where you end. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to do was you're already starting to feel like there's a lot of sort of tension in your lower lids here and even in your rings. So I kind of wanted to open up the eyes a little bit more, just so this way he feels like he's a little bit more warm and engaging at the beginning. And then like the nervousness sort of contracts him in sort of the later poses. And you can kind of build that in probably more in sort of your transitional poses than kind of the two that I sort of earmarked here. And then kind of, so that's really the big thing, just sort of opening up the eye mask. And then with your brows, this is again sort of that sort of painted on sort of mime kind of brow right here, where it doesn't really feel like it's being either pulled up or pushed in or pulled up in the center. It just sort of feels like they're just kind of resting there. So I kind of went in here and I gave this guy a little bit of tension, just so this way I kind of boxed that ring off. And then I kind of rounded this ring more and made this a little bit flatter. So this has the 3 graphic lines. This gives it a little bit of the tension. And then there's still sort of that feeling of flow kind of throughout them. So this way they still feel nice and connected. But now it's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit more broad than it needs to be. But this just kind of feels a little bit more like a blank kind of expression, whereas this kind of feels like a, hey, what are you doing kind of thing, which I think matches a little bit more like what you're doing with the mouth. And then the mouth, I pretty much did what you have here. The difference, I'm going to draw this really big, is I kind of feel like your top lip kind of has that sort of trapezoid shape to it, whereas ideally you want to get something that feels kind of flat with a little bit of a curvature to it. It's a very small change, but I think it makes a big difference. And then I got your corners to sort of feel like they're flowing with your lower lip a bit more. So this way it really feels like the muscles are actually kind of flowing in the path up all the way to kind of the oculus muscles in the eye. And that's just sort of just kind of a way just to sort of reinforce that this is a slight hint of a smile. Because right now you have something going to the ear. And it just kind of doesn't quite have that sort of nice little bit of flow. Also, I just kind of made sure that sort of this rounded kind of corner drives me nuts. It's a very little thing, but it always feels like very CG to me. So I always like to see just a little bit of kind of that tension in the mouth. If the mouth is pretty close to closed, if the mouth is open, you know, obviously then you're going to get kind of a much more round shape. God, I need like a 5th monitor. Well, I would need a 3rd and 4th. Wait, no, not that. So yeah, kind of when the mouth is tense, I like to sort of see that little bit of pucker on there. But when the mouth is open, that's when you can kind of get that round corner. And all these expressions will be covered in detail this week. But cool, so that's it for the first one. Pretty minor stuff. Really, like, mainly it's just about kind of opening up the eyes and the rings, just to sort of make sure that it doesn't feel too tense for later on when you kind of get the contrast, and now you really want to feel that tension. So now I kind of went in and I did the opposite with the rings. Like I brought them down and in to sort of get a little bit of that kind of worry in them. I brought the cheek up to sort of get a little bit of crow's feet. I brought the lids, the lower lids up, and I got them fairly flat. And I even opened up the top lids just a little bit to get a little bit of that white above the eye, just to give you that little bit of flash of like, that little fight or flight response in the eyes. And then I really pushed the worry in the center of the brows and really cranked those 3 graphic lines. So this way it really, really, really goes broad. And it may be too broad, but I just kind of wanted to dial everything up really, really big just to kind of show you the elements, and then you can kind of play with it and make it as subtle as you want. And then same thing kind of on the mouth that I was talking about earlier. No, that's not a very good drawing. Well, that just tells me that I didn't really put it in the right spot. But so yeah, so those corners should be a little bit higher just to sort of connect them to the eyes. Whereas this is just kind of feeling a little like he's doing this, you know, like, just because the lower lip is kind of going in and then the upper lip is sort of continuing there. So it's actually kind of feeling like you're actually sort of puckering your corners instead of just sort of feeling like there's tension kind of keeping those corners tight. And your top lip being flat, I actually don't mind. I probably made it a little too round. Let me fix that. Because I actually like the fact that you made your top lip a little bit flatter, because that kind of makes a little bit more feeling of stretch. And then it's very easy to get kind of jokery in a hurry with him. So I kind of tend to hide the top teeth a little bit. And sometimes I'll even kind of sneak in just a little bit of the lower teeth. So this way he feels a little friendlier, I guess. I don't know. I feel like the more teeth he shows, the more he kind of looks like he's going to bite me. So I like to kind of hide him a little bit. He's got huge, like really long teeth. Like to me, they look like the teeth of somebody else, and they might actually be the teeth of somebody else.
Like he stole them.
Yeah. And then your septum, I just felt like was too far down. So I'm not sure if that was a mistake or not, but it just it starts to look like somebody else's nose, and it starts to feel off model because kind of the relationship between sort of the top lip and the nose kind of changes there. And then also I just sort of swung the whole face around just slightly, just to sort of make sure that he didn't feel too rigid, because I kind of like to sort of treat the area sort of below the low lids a little bit more flexible than kind of the eye mask area, just to sort of give him a little bit more caricature. But cool, Paul, I think you're really close on these two expressions. It's just about kind of just pushing them a little bit more, and then just kind of playing with the tension. And, you know, kind of when you look at like this compared to this in the eye mask, and then this, oops, that was almost effective. And then this, like you kind of feel like there's not that change going on in the rings, at least to me. Whereas this and then this feels like there's a lot more sort of contrast in sort of the area around the eye mask. So it feels like you're getting kind of more contraction, and you feel that worry a lot more in the eyes than you do kind of. So it's just really about sort of pushing that throughout kind of the entire character.